if he wants to talk about foreign policy, Mr. Speaker, he should perhaps reflect on his own record, because this was the man who said he was 100% behind the former Labour leader, a person who wanted to abolish the army, scrap Trident and withdraw from NATO. It's clear what he did. He put his own political interests ahead of Britain's.
Well, that certainly wasn't a yes. And what he says now is totally at odds with the Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee report of July this year. That set out that the government has no clear strategy when it comes to China, has failed to support the intelligence agencies, and is leaving the UK severely handicapped in managing our future security. This has been raised time and time again. But yet again, the Prime Minister fails to heed the warnings and is now desperately playing catch-up. So will he finally commit to the full audit of UK-China relations, which so many in this House have so long demanded?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as always, the Leader of the Opposition is just playing catch-up and hasn't caught up with the reality of what's actually happening. He talks about the ISC report. Again, if he actually went through it, he would realise that it related to a period of investigations which was in 2019 and 2020. Since then, Mr. Speaker, we have launched a whole new integrated review refresh of our China strategy. It's published. We've put in place a range of new measures, including, for example, the National Security Protective Agency, which is staffed out of MI5, supporting businesses and organisations and being alert to the risk from cyber and from China. But if he wants to talk about foreign policy, Mr. Speaker, he should perhaps reflect on his own record, because this was the man who said he was 100% behind the former Labour leader, a person who wanted to abolish the army, scrap Trident and withdraw from NATO. It's clear what he did. He put his own political interests ahead of Britain's.
I'll get a little ring at the bell there for Jeremy Corbyn throwback.
True, but on this subject, I think he's got a point.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, on two things, people who like Keir Starmer, but remember those times, are prepared to be quite critical of him. One, that he didn't do nearly enough on anti-Semitism when Jeremy Corbyn was allowing that to run through the Labour Party. And the second is that, Corbyn is the most out there leader that we've had in pushing a century in terms of foreign policy. He fundamentally, sided with a lot of overseas nations against his own. And Starmer, again, was happy to prop him up. So on this, I think it's more legitimate than on a lot of the stuff that where the Tories throw that at them. But that was all quite substantive, wasn't it? Quite how sexy it is for the public. I mean, the previous answer, Sunak was talking about, this robust policy. Well, now, it's the integrated review refresh.
Refresh.
Which is what I was referring to. I should have spelt that out as well. But it... there's not people sitting around going, well, it's wonderful that you've got this...
But then it's interesting, Keir Starmer talking about, and I know he's asked about this before, a few months ago, a full audit of UK-China relations. And, whether it is people who are working in Parliament, whether it's, you were talking about this on the show earlier, universities and the way that they're entangled in both the number of Chinese students and the fact that universities rely on them for money, but also research as well.
Well, and the other question is that British, public schools, which, if they do lose their charitable status under Labour, it would probably be only Russians and Chinese that can afford to go to them.
And then you end up even more entangled. And then you say, well, we can't do anything because of the economic dependency.
I mean, a cynic would say that, a full audit is a very good way of not bothering to have a policy for 2 years while you allow the audit to unfold. These are complicated questions that do not lend themselves to... punchy questions and glib answers. I would be interested to know what Labour's policy is on China, and I'll be honest, I'm none the wiser as a result of these exchanges.
It's a full audit in addition to the integrated review refresh.